Do you know that the greatest secret of life has been hidden in plain sight? The power that moves worlds, that shapes destinies, that determines every event in your life. It is not outside you, it is within you. And that power is your imagination. When you imagine, you are not merely daydreaming. You are entering the creative workshop of God Himself. Every image held in the mind, every assumption you persist in, becomes the seed of tomorrow's reality. What you see within, no matter how invisible to the outer eye, must appear without. This is the law. The secret power lies in assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled. If you dare to feel wealthy while the world calls you poor, if you dare to feel loved while others reject you, if you dare to feel healthy when the body whispers otherwise, you awaken the God within you. And that inner conviction will clothe itself in fact. This is not idle theory, it is practice. Tonight, close your eyes and see yourself where you long to be. Enter that scene so fully that you feel its reality. Let the tones of reality convince you. When you rise from that state, know that the seed has been planted. Do not dig it up with doubt. Let it grow in silence until the harvest appears. The world will tell you to look outside for power, but I say turn within. For within you is the kingdom, the infinite imagination, the secret power that makes all things possible. So I ask you, will you use it consciously? Or will you let it create unconsciously? The choice is yours. The secret power is imagination, for it is the invisible force that shapes all visible reality. Everything you see in the world was first born as an image in the mind of someone who dared to believe in it. Imagination is not idle fantasy. It is the creative spirit within you, the very voice of God clothed in thought. When you assume something inwardly and persist in that inner conviction, the outer world rearranges itself to reflect it. What you accept as true within must one day appear without, for imagination is the womb of creation itself. Every assumption creates future reality because the mind is a builder, constantly molding unseen substance into visible form. When you assume a state, whether noble or trivial, you clothe yourself in its feeling, and that feeling attracts conditions that match it. Assumption is more than thought. It is the silent acceptance of a new identity. The world responds not to what you want, but to what you assume yourself to be. If you assume success, opportunities open. If you assume failure, obstacles multiply. The law is impersonal, working faithfully whether you use it for abundance or limitation. Most people live unconsciously, assuming lack, fear, and rejection, and then wonder why these experiences repeat. But the moment you awaken to this truth, you realize that your assumptions are seeds planted in the fertile ground of imagination. They may not sprout immediately, but with persistence they must appear. The subconscious accepts the assumption as fact and works tirelessly to externalize it. Life does not ask if your assumption is reasonable. It simply mirrors it. To assume is to claim inwardly what the senses may deny. Every event of tomorrow is contained in the assumptions you hold today. For assumption is destiny in seed form. Persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. For persistence is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. To merely entertain a desire once is not enough, for the mind is easily distracted by appearances and doubts. But when you return again and again to the inner state of already having what you long for, you anchor yourself in the reality of your desire. The senses may scream lack, the world may deny it, but if you dare to remain faithful to the inner vision, the outer world must yield. The law of assumption is not about fleeting emotion, but sustained conviction. It is the inner knowing that what you have imagined is already yours, though the evidence has yet to appear. Persistence requires discipline, for the mind loves to wander back into fear, worry, or old habits of thought. Each time it does, gently bring it back to the feeling of fulfillment. Ask yourself, if it were true now, how would I feel? How would I walk? How would I speak? Then live from that state in imagination until it becomes natural. The longer you remain in that state, the more the subconscious accepts it as fact. And once accepted, creation is set in motion. Persistence does not mean forcing or struggling, but dwelling in the assumption with quiet certainty. It is not about repeating empty words, but embodying the feeling as though it were present now. When you persist, the unseen reality hardens into fact, and what was once only imagined becomes the undeniable experience of your life. To persist is to choose faith over sight, conviction over doubt, and inner truth over outer evidence, until the invisible seed matures into the visible harvest. Inner conviction overrides outer facts, because the world you see is nothing more than the reflection of your dominant state of consciousness. Facts are temporary shadows, passing conditions created by former assumptions, but conviction is the living force that shapes new realities. When you hold within yourself a deep, inner certainty, you carry a power that no circumstance can withstand. The senses may present lack limitation or resistance, yet if inwardly you remain unshaken, those outer conditions must eventually bow to your conviction. Consider how often history has proven this law. Every great achievement was born from someone who refused to accept the evidence before them. They saw wealth where there was poverty, freedom where there was bondage, health where there was weakness, and by clinging to that inner vision, the outer world rearranged itself to match it. The man who insists on the truth of his inner assumption does not fight with appearances. He simply knows that appearances are not final. Conviction is not mere wishing or hoping. It is the acceptance of a new identity. To convince yourself inwardly is to embody the state now, regardless of what the world says. Outer facts only report the past. They cannot dictate the future unless you consent to them. By refusing to consent and holding firm to your assumption, you summon the creative power of imagination into action. The subconscious does not argue with appearances. It accepts the conviction you impress upon it and expresses it faithfully in form. This is why the man who feels rich, though penniless to the eye, will find opportunities flowing to him. The one who feels loved, though outwardly rejected, will draw relationships that mirror that love. The one who feels strong, though weak in body, will manifest strength. Outer facts yield because they are only the reflection of inner states, and states change when conviction changes. To live by inner conviction is to live by faith, knowing that unseen reality is more powerful than what is seen. It is to walk through the storm without fear, because you know the clear sky is already established within you. The world is compelled to conform to the conviction you sustain, for inner truth is always greater than outer evidence. Imagination is the workshop of God within you, for it is through imagination that the invisible becomes visible, that spirit takes on form, and that thought clothes itself in matter. Everything that exists in this world first lived in the unseen realm of imagination. The chair you sit on, the home you dwell in, the city you walk through, all were once ideas held in the mind of someone who dared to believe in their reality before the world confirmed them. Imagination is not a mere play of fancy. It is the sacred creative power through which all things are made. When you imagine, you enter the divine workshop where you are both the dreamer and the creator. You hold within your consciousness the ability to sculpt, mold, and design the conditions of your life. The mind, when focused, becomes a tool of infinite creation. By dwelling on a vision, by feeling its reality, by giving it the tones of naturalness, you breathe life into it. What begins as a silent picture within inevitably finds expression without, for imagination obeys the law of assumption. Whatever you assume as true in imagination and persist in must one day harden into fact. This power is not reserved for a few chosen individuals. It is the birthright of every man and woman. Yet most use it unconsciously, imagining fears, failures, and worst-case scenarios, and then marveling when these things manifest in their lives. The workshop of God within them is always active, but instead of building temples of faith, wealth, and joy, they construct prisons of doubt, lack, and limitation. To awaken is to take hold of this workshop and use it deliberately, directing its force toward the creation of a life aligned with your highest vision. To imagine is to collaborate with God, for God's creative power is expressed through you. The invisible architect resides within your own consciousness. When you close your eyes and see yourself as the person you long to be, when you feel the reality of your wish fulfilled, you are performing the sacred act of creation. This inner act sets in motion unseen currents that rearrange people, circumstances, and events to mirror the reality you have conceived. Imagination does not concern itself with how something will happen, for the how belongs to the wisdom of the unseen. Your part is to hold the vision, to enter the scene, and to persist until it becomes natural. The workshop does the rest. When you dwell faithfully in the inner state, life itself takes on the task of arranging the outer world. To recognize imagination as the workshop of God within you is to understand that you are never powerless. You carry within you the very instrument of creation. Every desire is an invitation to enter the workshop and bring forth the unseen into the seen. The world you experience tomorrow is being shaped by the images you nurture today. For imagination is the divine womb, where all things are conceived. Feel it real until it becomes natural, for the key to creation lies not in hoping, wishing, or waiting, but in embodying the end in consciousness so completely that it feels like the only truth. To feel is to accept within yourself the reality of a thing before it has appeared without. It is to claim inwardly that which the senses deny. The moment you clothe yourself in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you plant the seed of creation, and the longer you dwell in that state, the more natural it becomes. What once seemed strange, far away, or impossible becomes familiar, comfortable, and inevitable when you persist in the feeling. The mind is impressionable, and repetition engraves states into the subconscious. At first, the feeling of wealth may seem foreign to the one who has long lived in lack, or the feeling of love may seem unreachable to the one who has known rejection, or the feeling of health may seem distant to the one who has lived with weakness. Yet if you return again and again to the state, if you dare to feel it real, the subconscious accepts it as fact. And once impressed, the subconscious gives expression to what it has received. This is why persistence is essential. You do not feel a thing real once and expect the world to instantly change. You dwell in it until the assumption becomes second nature. Like learning a new language, at first it feels awkward and unfamiliar, but with repetition, it becomes effortless. When the feeling of the wish fulfilled is as natural as breathing, creation is complete, and the outer world must conform. The subconscious is loyal. It expresses whatever you impress upon it, whether by faith or by fear. By choosing to feel the desired state and persisting in it until it becomes natural, you consciously direct the law toward the fulfillment of your dreams. To feel it real is not to pretend or to play at imagination without conviction. It is to surrender yourself completely to the experience in the inner world, to walk, talk, and think from the state of already being. Ask yourself, if this were true now, how would I feel? How would I move? How would I interact with life? Then live in that inner reality until it is no longer an exercise but a way of being. The senses may deny it, but the inner feeling carries more authority than facts, for facts are only the shadows of past states. The beauty of this practice is that no one can deny you the right to feel. The outer world may present obstacles, delays, or contradictions, but your inner world is free. In imagination, you may go anywhere, be anyone, and experience anything. And if you persist in the inner conviction, the outer must bow. The bridge of incidents will unfold naturally, leading you step by step into the embodiment of what you have claimed. Feeling it real until it becomes natural is the act of faith in motion. Faith is not blind belief, but the willingness to assume the reality of the unseen and persist until it takes on flesh. When the state is natural, you no longer strive, no longer question, no longer wonder if it will happen, for you already know it is so. The world is compelled to echo the inner song you have sung until the invisible vision becomes the visible fact. For what is natural within inevitably expresses itself without. Doubt uproots, faith waters the seed, for every desire begins as a fragile thought, a tender seed planted in the soil of imagination. The moment you conceive a vision of yourself living in a higher state, you have placed that seed within the subconscious. Like a gardener, you are called to tend it with care, to nurture it with attention, and to protect it from the weeds of contradiction. Faith is the water, the sunlight, the nourishment that allows the seed to grow unseen beneath the surface until it pushes through as visible fact. Doubt, however, is the hand that digs into the soil, disrupting the growth, pulling out what has been planted before it has a chance to bear fruit. The law of creation is impersonal. It gives form to whatever is sustained within consciousness, whether by faith or by fear. When you entertain doubt, you are not neutral. You are creating in the opposite direction. Doubt whispers that what you imagine cannot be, that the evidence of the senses must be the final word, that your effort is wasted. If you consent to that voice, you uproot your desire before it has taken root in reality. But faith is the quiet assurance that what you have imagined already exists, unseen but certain, and that persistence will bring it into view. To live in faith is to live as though the seed is already growing, even if nothing appears above the ground. The farmer does not despair when he sees only bare soil. He knows that beneath the surface, life is stirring. In the same way, you must know that your inner assumption is germinating, even if the world has not yet confirmed it. Faith does not require visible proof. It is the conviction of unseen reality. Faith rests in the promise that imagination creates reality, that what is felt inwardly must one day harden into fact. Doubt often comes disguised as reason, insisting you look at circumstances and accept them as unchangeable. It tells you to be realistic, to temper your desires, to lower your vision. Yet the realistic man is bound by facts, while the man of faith reshapes facts to mirror his conviction. Faith does not deny the present condition. It simply refuses to make it final. It looks beyond appearances to the unseen reality already claimed within. Doubt says, it is not possible. Faith says, it is already done. Doubt sees the desert. Faith feels the garden blooming within. Every moment you dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are watering the seed. Every time you return to your inner vision with love and persistence, you are strengthening its roots. Faith is not loud or dramatic, it is quiet certainty, the calm inner knowing that creation is complete. You need not know how or when the harvest will come, only that it must. The law of growth is exact: what you plant, you will reap. To shift from doubt to faith is to shift from uprooting to nourishing, from destroying to creating, from delay to fulfillment. Even a small measure of faith, if sustained, outweighs doubt. For faith aligns you with the creative power of God within, while doubt severs you from it. The seed knows how to grow. Your task is simply not to disturb it. When doubt arises, gently release it and return to the vision. Replace the thought of impossibility with the feeling of certainty. Choose to remain loyal to your assumption, and faith will carry it to completion. Doubt uproots, faith waters the seed. One halts the process, the other fulfills it. To live by faith is to trust the unseen, to walk with assurance, to hold fast to the reality of imagination until it flowers into form. The choice is always before you, to uproot with doubt or to water with faith, to linger in fear or to stand in conviction, to delay your harvest or to bring it forth. Faith waters, sustains, and completes, while doubt destroys, delays, and denies. Every desire waits for your decision, and every seed responds faithfully to the gardener who tends it. What you entertain within must appear without, for consciousness is the only reality, and the outer world is but a mirror reflecting the inner state. Every image you hold, every thought you nurture, every feeling you persist in becomes the blueprint for the experiences that unfold in your life. The world around you does not move independently of your imagination. It is shaped, directed, and animated by the states you occupy within. To entertain an idea is to give it a place in the theater of your mind, and once admitted, it begins to weave itself into the fabric of your reality. Most people imagine unconsciously, allowing fear, worry, and limitation to take residence within them. They rehearse failure in their minds, replay past wounds, or picture the worst possible outcomes, and then they marvel when these very conditions show up in their daily lives. What they fail to see is that life is faithful. It simply delivers the harvest of the seeds planted in imagination. The law does not discriminate between good or bad, desirable or undesirable. It expresses whatever is entertained persistently, for the subconscious does not judge, it accepts and externalizes. To take charge of your life, you must take charge of what you entertain within. The inner conversation you hold with yourself is the silent architect of your destiny. Every assumption you persist in eventually hardens into fact, for the world cannot resist the creative power of sustained imagination. If you continually entertain wealth, love, and health within, your outer world must, in time, conform to these states. If you continually entertain lack, rejection, and sickness, the same law ensures their appearance. Life does not ask what you deserve, it reflects what you assume. The The mind is like fertile soil, and imagination is the seed. Whatever seed you drop into it will grow if nourished by attention and feeling. To dwell on an idea is to water it, to give it energy, to call it forth into visibility. Even idle thoughts, when repeated often enough, have the power to shape outcomes. This is why awareness is crucial, for the law is always at work. You cannot stop creating, but you can choose what you create by choosing what you allow yourself to entertain within. When you begin to deliberately entertain only those ideas that align with your highest vision, you step into the role of conscious creator. At first, it may feel unnatural to dwell on wealth when your bank account shows lack, or to feel loved when you are alone, or to feel healthy when the body is in pain. Yet the more you persist, the more natural it becomes. And once it becomes natural, the outer world has no choice but to echo it. What feels real within eventually becomes real without, for the world is compelled to mirror the dominant state. This law is not about forcing or struggling. It is about assuming the end within and letting the outer catch up. Entertain the scene of your wish, fulfilled with such vividness that you feel its reality now. Hear the voices that would congratulate you, see the faces that would smile at your success, touch the objects that belong to that state, and most importantly, feel the satisfaction as if it were already done. The subconscious takes this inner drama as fact and begins to move the outer world into alignment with it. The bridge of incidents that follows may seem natural, yet behind it is the invisible hand of imagination shaping all things. The discipline lies in loyalty to your inner vision, for the senses will try to pull you back to appearances. Doubt may whisper that nothing is changing, that your imagination is mere fantasy. But if you understand the law, you know that appearances are the past echoing itself, and the future belongs to what you entertain now. Persist in the vision regardless of what the outer world reports, and soon the mirror must change. Every invention, every discovery, every success story is proof of this principle. The Wright brothers entertained the image of flight when the world declared it impossible, and the world soon reflected their vision. Great leaders, artists, and thinkers have all lived by this law, consciously or unconsciously. They entertained ideas of freedom, beauty, and possibility, and the world reshaped itself to match their inner pictures. You, too, carry this power, for imagination is the divine workshop within you. To entertain an idea is to give it life, to invite it into form. The question is not whether the law works, but what you are allowing it to bring forth. What stories are you repeating within yourself? What scenes are you replaying when you are alone? What feelings are you dwelling upon in silence? These are the seeds of tomorrow's harvest, and they cannot be hidden, for what you entertain within must appear without. The world mirrors your inner state, for reality is nothing more than a reflection of consciousness, a great mirror faithfully returning to you the thoughts, feelings, and assumptions you hold within. Every circumstance, every relationship, every condition you encounter is shaped and molded by the unseen states you occupy. The outer world is not independent of you. It is the shadow of your inner life, the echo of your imagination, the picture of your belief. If you wish to change what you see without, you must first alter what you carry within, for the mirror never lies but always reflects. This principle is simple, yet most overlook it. They try to rearrange the mirror without changing their expression, attempting to manipulate people, events, or conditions while leaving the inner state untouched. But the mirror can only return what is presented to it. To seek change in the world without changing self is to fight shadows, a futile effort that leaves one exhausted and unchanged. The law is immutable, the outer reflects the inner. When you understand this, you no longer chase circumstances, but attend to your state of being, knowing that the world must conform to the image you sustain within. Your inner state is built from what you assume to be true about yourself, about others, and about life. If inwardly you assume lack, the world will reflect scarcity. If you assume rejection, life will present situations to confirm it. If you assume illness, the mirror will show a frail body. Yet, if you dare to assume abundance, love, and health, those very states will shine back to you through people, opportunities, and conditions. The world is neutral until colored by your consciousness. and it takes on the tone of your dominant feeling. Consider relationships where this truth is most evident. What you believe about yourself determines how others treat you, for they can only mirror the state you project. If you feel unworthy, you will encounter people who confirm that belief. If you feel loved and valued, you will meet those who reflect that reality. The world does not impose itself upon you, it reflects you. Every encounter is an invitation to examine your inner state and recognize the law at work. This understanding frees you from the illusion of victimhood. No longer do you blame the world or other people, for you see that they are only messengers delivering the reflection of your own consciousness. Instead of resisting or resenting, you turn within and choose a new state. Change the assumption and the reflection must change. The law is impersonal, without exception, and utterly dependable. The world mirrors your inner state in both subtle and dramatic ways. The casual thought entertained repeatedly shows up as coincidence. The deep conviction held in silence manifests as destiny. A man who inwardly assumes himself to be successful finds doors opening, while the man who assumes failure meets obstacles at every step. Yet the difference lies not in luck or chance but in the inner state sustained. Life is a mirror, not a creator. It merely reflects the creator within you. This is why imagination is so powerful, for through imagination you construct the state that the world must reflect. When you enter into a scene of your wish fulfilled, when you feel its reality and persist until it becomes natural, you are planting the seed of a new reflection. The world may at first show the old state, just as a mirror holds the last expression, until a new one is presented. But if you remain loyal to the new state, the reflection cannot resist. It must reveal what you have assumed within. To live consciously is to choose deliberately what you entertain within. For the outer is always watching, always reflecting, always echoing the inner tone. If you dwell in fear, the world becomes a threatening place. If you dwell in faith, the world becomes supportive. If you dwell in love, the world shows kindness. The mirror cannot return something different from what you project. This truth requires responsibility, for it leaves no room for excuses. If the world mirrors your inner state, then every unwanted circumstance is but a reflection of an inner assumption. This is not cause for guilt, but for empowerment, for what was assumed once can be reimagined now. No state is permanent. Every state is a garment you wear, and you may take off one and put on another at will. Change your inner clothing, and the world must reflect the new attire. Great men and women of history have lived this truth, often unknowingly. They carried within themselves a vision of greatness, freedom, or discovery, and the world bowed to reflect it. Their circumstances did not dictate their inner state. Their inner state dictated their circumstances. You hold the same power, for consciousness does not play favorites. The world you live in is simply the mirror of who you believe yourself to be. Every day, the mirror invites you to look deeper, to ask not, why is this happening to me, but what am I entertaining within that the world is showing me? Such a question shifts the focus from blame to creation, from reaction to imagination. By choosing new assumptions, you polish the mirror, and soon a new reflection appears. The world mirrors your inner state faithfully, endlessly, perfectly. It has no will of its own. It is not your enemy nor your friend, it is your reflection. When you accept this, you cease striving with shadows and turn instead to the source within, where all change begins. The mirror will always return what you show it, and when you live from a higher state, the world cannot help but rise to meet you. Consciously use imagination to shape destiny. For imagination is the unseen power that governs the visible world, the eternal workshop where every form, event, and circumstance of life is conceived. Most live as slaves to appearances, believing themselves victims of chance, luck, or external forces. Yet the truth is that nothing appears in the outer world that has not first been accepted in the inner world. The destiny of every man and woman is not written by fate but woven by imagination, for imagination is the voice of God within, and when used consciously, it becomes the means by which you shape your life into harmony with your highest vision. To use imagination consciously is to recognize that you are always imagining, always creating, always shaping the course of your future through the assumptions you accept and the feelings you persist in. The difference between the unconscious dreamer and the conscious creator is awareness. The unconscious man entertains fear, doubt, and limitation, and the law faithfully mirrors these states as unwanted circumstances. The conscious man deliberately chooses his inner images, assumes the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and persists in it until the outer world reflects the new state. The law works the same for both, only the direction of use changes. Destiny is not a distant mystery or something imposed upon you by external conditions. Destiny is simply the harvest of imagination. The ideas you hold, the inner conversations you repeat, the pictures you dwell upon, and the feelings you sustain form the seeds of tomorrow's events. To see yourself poor, weak, or unloved is to accept such a destiny, for the subconscious, once impressed, will bring it forth. To see yourself rich, strong, and loved is to claim a higher destiny, for the same law that brings limitation will bring abundance when directed with purpose. The seed you plant is your choice. The law of growth is constant and impartial. Consciously using imagination requires discipline, for the senses will always present evidence of the old state. The world will show lack when you desire wealth, illness when you desire health, loneliness when you desire companionship. If you live by sight, you will fall into doubt and surrender your power to appearances. But if you live by faith, you turn from the mirror of the senses and dwell in the unseen reality you have chosen. You close your eyes to what is and open them inwardly to what will be. You feel the reality of your desire now, not as a wish, but as an accomplished fact. You speak, think, and act from that inner conviction until it becomes natural. The outer world, by law, must conform. To shape destiny consciously, you must become the author of your own inner script. Imagine the scene that implies your wish fulfilled. If wealth is your goal, see yourself counting the money, signing the checks, or enjoying the security it brings. If love is your desire, hear the voice of your partner, feel the warmth of their embrace, and let the joy of companionship fill you. If health is your aim, imagine the ease of movement, the strength in your body, the radiant energy that flows through you. Do not merely think of these things. Enter into them as though they are happening now, live from the end, not toward it. The subconscious does not distinguish between imagination and reality. It accepts the impressions you give it and faithfully brings them into form. When you imagine a scene and feel its reality, the subconscious takes it as true. Once impressed, it moves people, circumstances, and events to align with that assumption. The bridge of incidents that follows may seem ordinary, but behind the ordinary is the hand of imagination arranging the pieces. This is why persistence is vital. The seed may not sprout immediately, but if you remain faithful, it must grow. Destiny is not fixed, it is fluid, shaped by the states you occupy. Every state is a garment, and you may clothe yourself in one or another at will. To live in the state of lack is to wear the garment of poverty, and life mirrors it. To live in the state of abundance is to wear the garment of wealth, and life mirrors that. The garments are not permanent. They can be changed as easily as you change your clothes. The key is to assume the new garment until it feels natural, for once it is natural within, it must be reflected without. When you consciously use imagination, you free yourself from the tyranny of circumstance. You cease blaming others, fearing chance, or waiting for luck, and instead you turn to the infinite power within. You know that the world is yourself pushed out, and therefore to change the world, you change self. You no longer fight with shadows, you work at the root, knowing that the outer is only the echo of the inner. This knowledge is liberation, for it places destiny in your hands. To practice this truth, set aside time each day to withdraw from the outer world and enter the inner. In the silence of imagination, create the scene of your wish fulfilled. Let every detail be vivid. Let the tones of reality convince you, and most importantly, feel the satisfaction of the desire already realized. When you rise from this inner act, carry with you the conviction that it is done. In daily life, refuse to contradict your assumption with doubt or fear. Each time you are tempted to look at appearances, remind yourself that the world is only the reflection of yesterday's state and that today's conviction is shaping tomorrow's fact. The greatest secret is that imagination is God in action. To consciously use imagination is to cooperate with the divine creative power within. Every invention, discovery, and achievement in history has come from someone who dared to imagine beyond appearances. They saw with inner eyes what the world could not yet see, and by persisting, they brought it into being. You carry this same power, for there is no limit to imagination, except the one you impose upon it. Consciously use imagination to shape destiny by living in the end of your desire. Do not wait for permission from the world. Give yourself permission within. Do not beg circumstances to change. Command them by assuming the state desired. Do not postpone your fulfillment to a distant future. Claim it now in imagination. The moment you feel it real, destiny begins to shift, for the inner act is the seed of the outer fact. The law is certain, the process is exact, and the harvest is sure. You are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul, because imagination is the workshop of creation, and destiny itself is the reflection of the states you choose to entertain.